So, as people do, a guy at the office was talking about how he saw my video about how I restored a sword that was in family heirloom. And he said, you know what, I have some interesting swords as well, but I have no idea how I'm going to restore these things or, bring them back to life. So I said, well, bring it into the office. I'll have a look at it. And my gosh, was I surprised when I saw these swords that he brought to the office. They have some interesting inscriptions on them. They're in Spanish. This right here is easy enough to understand. It says Hecho in Mexico, so made in Mexico. But the rest of this was a complete mystery to me. So I asked one of the other gals in the office who speaks Spanish to interpret these for me. And this is, she told me what they said, and I was like, you know what? There's no way I could repeat that. So this one right here says, when you see me rise, prepare to die. And this one here says, this is the weirdest one. When the owl, well, I'll let her explain it to you. So here's the translations to these in her own words.
Cuando me veas lucir, prepárate a ver morir, which in English stands for, when you see me rise, prepare to die. And cuando el tocolote canta, el indio muere, which means when the owl sings, the Indian will die.
So first step on these, get this rust off. You can see how much rust there is all over these. A lot of this is from people touching it, and some of it's just, sitting around doing nothing. They're really coarse, and it appears that there might be some sort of plating on here. If during our restoration we damage some of this plating, then we'll turn this video into a electroplating video on how to nickel plate ferrous metals. So let's get this under the acid and clean this up, see what we got. You know me with brass. Anytime there's any kind of brass or copper, I'm going to sand and polish this down to a nice sheen, so that looks really nice. So I should be able to make short work of this. And we'll see what's underneath here. That's got some nice inscriptions and some nice artwork on here. So let's get the acid out, clean these up, and see what it looks like. All right, so this one here has been dipped in the acid, scrubbed it all off. And I ran it on the buffing wheel, and it is a lot cleaner, but I'm not going to say restored. If you're looking at some of the sheen, you can see this difference in colors right along here. The rust has etched away at the original plating that was on here. So this will indeed need to be replated. We're going to do a little plating action on here. See if we can get nickel plating on here to brighten it up a bit. But, if you can see the different sheens that you have along here, this is going to need to be restored with a little plating. So that'll be a neat experiment. I've never actually plated something quite as large or long as this, so I'm going to have to see if I can get enough material that I can plate onto this, and to see if I can get a good even electrical current to flow from one side of a pan to the next, because I can't dip 3 feet of vinegar in here. It's not 3 feet, but 1.5 feet, whatever. So we're going to have to lay it flat, and that means that the electrical current's going to have to flow horizontally, and I don't know if we're going to get that to go. So it might take a few tries. Maybe we'll flip it over and do on one side and do it again, but we'll see how that goes. But in order to plate it, you need to protect those areas that you're not going to plate. So I went ahead and I buffed off this brass hilt so that now that it's nice and shiny, I'm going to paint it with some clear coat to protect it from the electroplating. We don't want the brass to turn silver or nickel but we do want this to have a nickel plate on it. So we're gonna prevent the plating from getting on here by painting some clear coat on here to protect it. But it looks pretty nice. I mean, I've cleaned up the brass real nice. You know, maybe I think these eyeballs need some sort of a, I mean, I'm not going to go buy a ruby or anything, but maybe I'll see if I can make some glass inserts for these eyeballs, just to give it something to add some interest to it. But that's what this one looks like. Comparing it with the other one, you can see the difference in finish straight away. I mean, this is very rusty and dull compared to this one that's had the acid wash. So, I mean, it's an improvement, right? Moving in the right direction. All right, moving ahead. All right, so electroplating on this sword is going to be a little tricky because I need a really large receptacle in order to fit it in there. So I got this kind of odd shaped bucket, and we're going to do an entire gallon of distilled white vinegar. Here I've got a couple of plates. These are electrodes and cathodes for their solid nickel. I got these off of Amazon. They're really cheap. And a couple of alligator clips. I have a bunch of alligator clips. We'll get a couple that'll work. Initially, what we need to do is make a solution. And so we're going to take two of these and we're going to sacrifice them both and basically run them through the electrolysis process. I have a power supply here. This has 5 volts. Here we go. Output of 5 volts at 1600 milliamps. That should be adequate to get some good electrolysis. You don't want to go much more than 5 volts. 6 or 7 might be pushing it, but if you go much higher than that, you're going to get a lot of particulates and debris. We want to make this a nice shiny surface, and we don't want to have to go back and buff it. So that's the 5 volts should be a good balance. So let's go ahead and set this up. I'm going to dump the vinegar in there. I'm going to put some plain salt. This is not iodized salt. It's just plain salt. There is an added yellow prussate of soda in there, but this is as close as you can get to, you know, off the grocery store plain salt. And you just want to make sure there's nothing in there that's going to change the color of your electrolyte when you start to create those metal ions in here. We're not, you know, picking up any other additional ions. The reason why you put salt in there is to increase the conductivity of the solution, so that the electrical current can pass between the electrodes. So let's go ahead and set this up and start making some bubbles. All right, so some progress on the nickel plating front here. So this is the negative side. You can see it's over time it's collected some, I guess you call those dendrites. The little pieces of nickel that have reformed. They went across from the anode. They degraded off the ends of these, and I ended up putting 2 on there, and went through the solution, which turned a nice green, and moved on and made little dendrites on the end. This is still in really good shape. I can probably use this as the positive side on my next plating, because it has not only what was in there originally, but, you know, additional stuff. So we're going to be able to use that. One thing though, something interesting happened. Here's a brand new one. This is one that I was intended on using on the finished product. And if you notice on here, here's a magnet. It's magnetic. I didn't think nickel was magnetic. I think only ferrous metals are magnetic, which means these are not 100% nickel. They are little metal plates that have nickel on them. See, there's some layers. And I think that's probably how they made these plates, is they're nickel plated, but they're very thick. nonetheless, it still gave me the green that I wanted, and I think that we're going to be able to plate no problems with this. I don't think I'll use that same manufacturer, but I don't know that they're all going to be anything different. It's still going to do what I wanted it to do. Anyway, what did happen was you can see these dark spots. That is the ferrous material, I believe. And so what I ended up doing last night, I didn't want to leave this running overnight. So at midnight, I decided to move the product from the bucket back into the original pail of vinegar. And in order to do that, I decided that I needed to filter that, because I didn't want any contaminants in there that would, degrade my job. But you can see with the little magnet, a lot of these materials are ferrous. There's iron filings in there, so they're really powdery. I don't think it's a really big deal though, and I got them out by filtering. So we're going to have a really good solution that we can use when we start actually anodizing this. Now, I say anodizing, it's nickel plating. When we put the sword in here, the next trick is going to be, we don't want the handle to get any nickel plating on it. So we're gonna probably, put this at an angle so we can keep the handle out of it. But the other thing is that right at the hilt, there's brass, and we don't want that brass to pick up any nickel plating either. So the trick that we're going to do on that is I'm going to paint that brass with a clear coat. I've already polished it. I'm going to put a clear coat of enamel on that, and that should keep the vinegar. The vinegar is a very light acid. It's not really that caustic, but that vinegar will not penetrate through the clear coat. So I'm going to go ahead and spray that down. We'll tape it up, get a little plastic bag around the hilt, and then we'll start the electroplating on the sword. All right, so here we are. We got the sword in there. I've got the copper here all covered with some clear, and I've protected the handle with some saran wrap and a bunch of tape. Also, this is painted up here as well. You can see we've got some bubbles forming. So the electroplating process has started. I'm going to run this for about an hour, and I'll flip it over on the other side just to make sure that we get a good even coverage, because it's laying on the ground. So obviously the stuff where it's touching back here is not going to get anything. But we'll flip it over after a little while, and then we'll move forward. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so there you go. After a couple of hours in the nickel plating bath, we have a little bit of improvement on this. Now, nickel plating, and any kind of plating for that matter, electroplating, there's a lot of things that can prevent adhesion. Just a greasy fingerprint would be enough. But before I put these into plating, I washed them all down with acetone, got them all nice and clean, made sure that there was no contamination. But there was existing plating on here, and it didn't take any of my nickel plating. But what did happen, and I don't know if you can notice from this view, anything that was rusty, where their plating had failed, my nickel plating took. So if you look at some of like these some of the artwork here, where some of that had rusted a bit, it now has a nice shiny nickel plate on it. Some of the places where on the edge where the nickel plating, their plating had failed, it now has nickel plating on it. So, I've made it shinier. It's brighter. And the other advantage to the nickel plating is any place where the nickel did adhere, it's going to be resistant, not rust proof, but resistant to rusting. So it'll make this this blade last a whole lot longer. And if you were just to compare this, see, even on this side where the letters are raised, it did pick up some of the nickel plating in there. So any of the rusty areas, those have now picked up some plating. So I'm not going to call this a failure. It's a partial success. And ultimately, it's going to help to restore this and keep it from degrading any further. And if you were to compare that to the original, where you have quite a bit of rust, I'm going to go ahead and run this one through the acid. But I just wanted to leave. Whoops. I just wanted to leave this one untouched, so we could compare, you know, the cleaned up one versus the one that was originally still kind of rusty. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do this one, and that's all I really can cover on the video tonight. But that is restoration of these really interesting Mexican blades. That's all I got for you tonight. Cheers.